Hi everyone. So today I wanted to talk about why I think you should never be offended by anybody and how you can achieve that. So, first of all, the reason why you're offended by something that someone said is because you, at least to a certain extent, believe what they said. Now, for example, say someone came up to me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, your hair is so blue. It looks terrible." And I would be like, well, obviously my hair is not blue, but I would find no offense to it because I personally don't believe my hair is blue. So I would just laugh it off and be like, oh, they must, I don't know who they're talking to, but I don't have blue hair, so that doesn't offend me and I can just brush it off. Another example is, maybe someone came up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're such a loud person. And they said this in like an insulting tone. I would also not take offense to this because if they said it to me, I would look around and be like, I don't know who you're talking to because I know for a fact that I'm not a loud person. I'm not a super loud person. I'm not a super outgoing person. I know that to be very true to myself. So I wouldn't be offended by that either because I know for a fact it's not true. But to switch it up, for a case where I would be offended if someone came up to me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a shy person. Like you're so quiet." And once again, they're saying this in like an insulting manner. Or even if they didn't mean it in an insulting manner, even if they said it as just like a neutral statement that they didn't really think about, I would still take a little bit of offense to it because I grew up with an insecurity about being shy and quiet and liking my alone time. And so I would feel a little bit offended because it would kind of trigger these memories of people saying that as an insult to me when I was younger, and that being a point of insecurity for me. So even if I have gotten a lot more confident with myself and I don't really necessarily believe that I'm a super shy and quiet person, I see it as a very neutral trait rather than an insulting trait now. I would still like it would still trigger a little bit in me where I would be a little bit offended, at least initially, where I'm like, dang, like, wow, they really think that of me. I'm offended because I think to a certain extent that what they said is true, or at least it triggers something in me that in the past where I used to think that that was a true statement. So, first of all, we need to know that being offended means that you believe this person, even a little bit, like as long as you believe them a little bit and it goes against yourself and it goes against your self-worth in some sort of a sense, you will be offended. Now, if you want to get rid of any sort of notion of being offended in your life, you need to create a sense of self-identity, a self-assuredness so strong where your identity is so unshakable that nothing that anyone can say can affect you or offend you. Now, how do you do this? So, the way that I personally did it is through a lot of alone time. Now, the thing is, in order to get rid of or at least work on insecurities and things that you could be offended by, you really need to spend a lot of time with yourself and develop a lot of self acceptance. And I did this through a lot of meditation, and I did this through a lot of journaling and a lot of reading self development books. Now, meditation is great because you can really get into your subconscious mind and get rid of any limiting beliefs, any past negative beliefs, which will help you create sort of a blank slate to where you can build upon that and develop your sense of identity. So, first of all, you need a blank slate, a clean slate, get rid of any previous, you know, negative beliefs and self doubts. And a great way of doing this is, of course, meditation, like I said, but also journaling. There's a ton of like shadow work journal prompts that you can do. You can literally just like Google them, but those help so much. Even just doing one a day really, really helps because you really have to get into your subconscious and be like, hey, even if I consciously don't know these things, subconsciously, my past is running my life. And my past is why I'm offended and why I don't have a very strong sense of self. And so you really need to get in there and get rid of those beliefs, write them down. And the thing is, I think a lot of people are afraid of journaling and writing because your writing will not lie to you. Your true feelings about certain situations, certain people, how your life is doing, your past will always eventually come out if you write. Now, I like to do this by stream of consciousness writing, where I can just write for like 30 minutes straight and just get everything out, say whatever I want to say. And that's really how you get those past beliefs out and onto paper. And so you can recognize them and become aware of these limiting beliefs. And so once you are aware, you can see how they show up in your life. And then once you're aware, you can really kind of restructure your brain to be like, okay, let's not think that anymore. Let's get to the root cause of why I think that. And then you can build upon that to develop a really strong sense of self. Once you have a really strong sense of self, things that you know that aren't true to yourself will literally just fly by you. You can just brush them off because you won't register them as true. It's literally like the hair example of like, I know I don't have blue hair. That's how untrue whatever thing this person said to me. And now you have to think about everything else that is offensive to you. You have to think about it like, oh, that's literally not true at all. That's not a fact. And then you'll just never be offended. People who are easily swayed by people's opinions and are easily offended have very weak senses of self. They have very strong egos that are very vulnerable to other people's opinions. And the thing is, I don't want people to associate a strong sense of self with a strong ego. Those are actually opposite things. A strong ego, a very strong ego is where you're offended by everything. You take everything personally and you really need to control others to feel a sense of control of yourself because you have no control over yourself. And a strong sense of self, on the other hand, is where you are so secure in yourself that you don't need to control other people. You don't need to control other people's opinions about you. You know yourself, and that's literally all that matters. So that, yeah, they're very different things, and I don't want people to confuse them because they're literally opposites. But yeah, people who are easily swayed by others' opinions have very weak senses of self, and they often project onto people and then take on projections of others. So, unlike people who have very weak senses of self and strong egos, people who are confident and self assured have control over their reactions. That's why people who are very calm and collected are usually pretty confident people, where people who have weak senses of self will go into like fits of rage and be very, very overly expressive of their emotions to the point where it hurts other people around them. You'll never find that with someone who's very confident. And they know how to control their reactions. They know how to analyze their emotions. They have agency over their emotions, and they know which ones are important and which ones are not. And they know which comments from other people are constructive criticism and important, or if the other person is just trying to be offensive or insulting, and to not take that to heart and just brush it off. So all in all, you really shouldn't be offended by people because a lot of times they project. And if you are offended, that means that maybe your sense of self isn't the strongest. And we've all been there. I used to be there. I'm still somewhat there. We're all a work in progress. But yeah, in order to gain a stronger sense of self, you need to be able to spend time with yourself and be comfortable with solitude. And the ways that I personally really grew my identity and became really confident is through a lot of meditation and a lot of journaling. And yeah, if you have a strong sense of self, it'll be hard for somebody to offend you. Yeah.